Good evening, all. Welcome to the NPTEL online certification course program for the Biophotonics. I am your online TA for the Biophotonics, and I will introduce myself. I am Jijit. I am an interdisciplinary research scholar of IIT Madras. My working area is actually chemistry as well as biotechnology. I am a physics graduate, and my broad area of study will be enzymatic degradation of noted proteins using single molecule force spectroscopy using optical pieces. So let us start the discussion regarding that last week's classes, and let us do some model problems. We'll wait. Let us start the sessions. And last week, we can see that week 9, actually, the discussion part was like, or the lecture part was usually the light-based tissue engineering, and these things are actually discussed in a qualitative manner rather than a quantitative manner. So the assignment solving and other things will not take that much time. But yeah, this we will study here. And yeah, the next week or the week which is going on is actually the optical teaser part, and that also we will discuss a little bit basics of that one in a superficial manner, such that we can go and have a nice idea about how this optical teaser can use it in the when we are discussing the detailed manner in the next week. Okay, so let us start. Just the camera. So let us start with the basics of the. We're going to start with the basics of the nature of the light and other things, how they can lead to the idea of optical teaser. Okay, so we'll start with some basics ideas in classical mechanics, and we'll move towards the optical teaser. Because this is mainly that kind of things that actually only required to understand about the basic idea of this optical teaser. Okay, so let us start. So I'm starting with the basics laws of motion in physics. You people might have already heard in our high school classes, like and plus one, plus two also. There are three losses of motion, and how these laws of motions are. These are actually the, you can say, the fundamentals of the mechanics, and how it will be useful for studying the optics that we will see now. Okay, so so I will start with the idea of laws of motion. Just see, we have three laws of motion, and what they are talking about, and that actually defines the normal Newtonian mechanics. So Newtonian mechanics is the branch of the mechanics in which we can tell the movement of the particle, which is not very small, or it is not moving very fast. There are different branches of mechanics, we can say. So this is mass, and this is velocity. Or we can say this is mass, and this is velocity. So when mass of the particle is small, and velocity is something in the nominal level, the mass of particle is very small, or you can say the mass of the particle is somewhat bigger, and velocities of the particle is not very much high. Very much high means the velocity which we are comparing is the velocity of the light. So if it is not at all near to the velocity of light, that deals with classical mechanics. Classical mechanics can deals with very high mass also, but since it is not moving with a velocity which is not comparable to the light. So if that particles are moving with the mass of the particle is also some more higher, and but that particle's movement is actually comparable with the speed of the light, then theory of relativity will come. So you can say it will be relativistic classical mechanics. So if the particle, the mechanics of the particles, which is very high, particle size is some more comparable to that. It's not very small, but the particle's velocity is very high. So we have to deal with the relativistic quantum mechanics. If the velocity is somewhat normal, and which is not comparable to that of the light, but the mass of the particle is so small, so like a dimension of the electrons and other things, and like atomic dimensions and other things, we cannot deal them with the classical mechanics. Then we deal with the quantum mechanics. So if the particle mass is less and the velocity is not compared to that of the light, we have to deal with quantum mechanics. And if the particle mass is also less, and we have to deal with the relativistic also, and this is also, we have to deal with the relativistic in the quantum mechanics. So it's also in the relativistic manner. So this is something called quantum field theory or something. We have to deal with that one, that we have to discuss. So there are, but the thing is that whatever we are seeing in our world is classical mechanics. When it is happening in the electronics level and other things, that will come in quantum mechanics. And when we are dealing with very high speed of the light, will be like a relativistic classical mechanics kind of thing. So whatever in our perspective, that's almost in classical mechanics, and this laws of motion is actually tells some three laws in classical mechanics. So these things are actually we already learned. One is actually first law. What first law saying? If there is a body is kept, if the body is at rest, that means the velocity is zero. The body will stay in that state or v is equal to some v naught. Then the body will continue with that velocity motion in the straight line. So if the body is at rest, the body will stay at rest for there, and if the body is in motion, the body will stay continuously in motion. So this is actually called law of inertia, or the first Newton's first law of motion. Unless, so there is actually a catch, the body will stay in state of rest or in the state of uniform motion along a straight line unless it is acted by a external force. So body will stay in rest or motion. So if a force is acted on a body, it will actually change its states of motion. So, but we will see that in a normal case, if you move something in a ground, that will actually, after moving someplace, it actually will get stopped. So, what happens then whether the Newton's law of motion is violated or not? So, we can see that that is not an ideal case. In the case of a moving body in our floor, that actually the the body is always under action of force. The friction force is acting on the body against the movement of the body. So if there is no friction at all, the body will stays in state of rest or in the state of uniform motion, and it will go as it is. So actually it will give, the first law is giving a notion of force. Now second law of motion actually giving how to quantitatively define the force. Then the Newton defined that the force is directly proportional to the change of rate of change of momentum. What is momentum? In the classical manner, momentum is actually mass into velocity. So this is actually giving the it can consider it as the value of movement or value of what you can say. Yeah, the momentum can be considered as a how much it can consider as a measure of movement. So if the particle has measure of motion, if the particle has a more momentum means either it can have a big mass or it can have a very high velocity or both. So if the motion is changed means actually it can be changed by its direction, or the velocity can be decreased or increased. So actually in our case, in the classical case, actually we are thinking that mass is a constant and it is not changed by itself. So if there's a momentum change happens, so there should be an action of a force. So the time rate of change of momentum is directly proportional to force, and we defined the force in such a way that the proportionality constant F is equal to k into dp by dt. We can say the proportionality constant we defined like that, F is equal to dp by dt. If in our conventional method, if we use the or dp by dt, we can see how it will come. F is equal to dp by dt. V is actually d by dt of m into v. So m is a constant, dv by dt. So ma. So according to the normal proportionality, F proportional to ma, but we defined our force unit in such a way that when m is equal to 1 kilogram and acceleration is equal to 1 meter per second square, the force defined as 1 newton, or is equal to kilogram meter per second square. So the proportionality constant k became 1. So F is equal to ma. Now we have to see how it will be useful for our study of the light. Now we can for this one actually we can consider the particle nature of the light. So now we can see how a light can be embedded with a particle which have a elastic property in nature. So now just consider that I am hitting a ball over a surface. So what happened? Ball will be hit here, will go there. So what happened here? This was my ball. Ball was coming here, and this was its ball's momentum. And the suddenly after hitting the ball, ball is actually rebound at a different direction. That means there was a change in momentum. So there is a change in momentum means there is a force. What is the force? Who exerted the force here? So this wall actually exerted the force on the ball. So you can see that if we didn't see this wall at all, only we are seeing the ball is going somewhere and there is a change in momentum. We can say that yeah, the ball got experienced by some force exerted by something, and here that something is actually that wall. So if there is a change in momentum occurs, definitely there will be a force exerted on the particle. Similar way, there's another thing. Now comes the third law of motion. So in third law of motion, it says that for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. So I'm saying that a ball is actually hit on the wall and it's rebounding. So what happens? What is the cause of the rebounding? Because the ball exerted some force on the ball. Similar way, the ball is actually with respect to the wall. What happens? The wall is also got applied by the force by a ball. So just see that you are instead of the wall, just see that there is a big ball. There is a small ball and there's a big ball. We are hitting here and it is coming back. So this is coming back, and this big ball also will move a little bit. And what caused the big ball to move? What was the reason for the ball, small ball to return back? The small ball to return back because the force is exerted by the big ball. Why this big ball moved? The big ball moved because of the force exerted on the big ball due to the small ball. So the Newton's third law is saying that that force exerted by one particle to another will be same as that of the other also. But what happens? The force is exerted on the different particles. So that's why it is not getting cancelled. Now, these three laws of motions can be used to understand how an optical teaser works, or how we can use the particle nature of the light to explain these all things. Okay, let's start. Just wait for some time. We'll start soon. Okay, sorry for the interruption. We'll continue. So now we see how this will be useful for the optical tensor experiment. We know that we can say, as a particle nature of the light, we can say that whenever the light travels, light also carries momentum, and it can impart force on the particles. So the same thing is like that I'm saying, light is getting reflected from a surface. What is happening? This is the initial momentum due to light, and this is the final momentum. So there is a change in momentum. So as a result, the light also imparts a force on the surface. But the thing is that the force is actually too small, such that we cannot realize the magnitude of the force. Okay, now we will see what happens if the force is somehow comparable. So now we will see how what happens when a light ray is passes through a dielectric bead. Consider a dielectric bead. Consider light passes like this. What will happen? The bead has a refractive index more than that of the air, so light will bend like this. I'm considering this as bend like that. Okay. So if you consider the momentum, what is the change in momentum? This is the initial ray, and there is a change. So this is the final ray. So this is the initial ray, this is the final ray. So if you see the law of vector, it's the final ray, this is the initial ray. So the change in momentum is like this. So what happens? So this means there is a change in momentum happened here. So correspondingly, there will be some force. So this is the ray. It's happening like this way. There is the light experienced a force in this direction. So this bead will experience a force in the opposite direction. So this is the fundamental things about this optical twist. So we will go some more. Consider the particle. So it will go like this way. So initial momentum is something like this way. Final momentum is something like this way. So change in momentum is something like this way. So light experience a force in this direction. As a result, the bead experience a force in this direction. Similar thing will happen if a light ray is coming like this way also. Go like this way. So the light experience a force in this direction. So the bead experience a force in this direction. So this is the force which is exerted due to the phenomenon of refraction. So the force is called a refractive force. So what is the net effect of this force? So we can see here the refractive force is so that just go like this way, just go like this way. If there is a cone of light happen, so the net effect of the refractive force will be upward direction. So as a result, what happens? The refractive force, the force which is happens in the due to the refraction will tends will take the bead. It tends the bead to go up or to tends the bead to go towards the source. Now, other than the refractive force, there are like reflective force also there. So the source is coming from here, and the it is coming here. It's reflecting back. This is coming something like this way. It's reflecting back. Here also it is coming here, reflecting back. As a result, what happens? There will be force experienced on the particle like this direction, this direction, this direction, such that the net force will be in this direction. So the refractive force will exert the net force in the upward direction, whereas the reflective force will exert a force in the downward direction. At what position when these forces on these beads are equilibrium? Means the forces are balances and the net force is zero. At that position, the bead will get trapped. So why? Because that position bead will not experience any force. So that is an equilibrium position and bead will be get trapped at that position. This is the fundamentals of optical picture. What happens if you move the bead one or two sides? So automatically the refractive force and refractive force will go imbalance, and there's a tendency that it will again pull the bead towards the equilibrium position. So this is the fundamentals of optical teaser. So now we already see that we want a light which will come like this a conical manner. Then only this thing will get satisfied. So what can be given? A light in a conical manner, that's nothing but a lens. So we will use a high power lens, and the strong laser light will be used here, and this will create this conical thing, and our bead will be get trapped at the focal plane such that where the refractive force and reflective forces are balanced, and this refractive force and the reflective force are balanced at the position this bead is actually trapped. This is actually the basic of optical picture. Only we are explaining in terms of corpuscular nature of the light. So we will see about that laser's intensity and the Gaussian beam property of the laser beam in the next class. But this is like the basic fundamentals of the optical picture, which is explaining on the only using the corpuscular theory of the light. Okay, so now let us start solving our assignment questions. These questions are usually in a qualitative manner, so you can directly tell the answer such that it will be useful. Laser induced pairing of two or more tissue is known as. So we have tissues are there, and we have to bind the tissue using laser. The thing is that we cannot use very high power laser such that the cells will undergo necrosis, and then we cannot or it can get charred, or then we cannot use this one. So we have to use the power of the laser in such a way that two tissues are got combined, and there is it's a direct answer of the question. It's like what is the normal procedure of binding two metals or something is called, that's called welding. So now if you are using the laser to weld two types of tissues is called tissue welding. So the answer is B. Okay, and out. Most of the most used laser to treat ophthalmic disorder like retinal tears or retinal blood occlusion is. Now we already see about different types of retinal diagnosis and treatment using LASIK and other things. So there we already seen that in the case of ophthalmic surgery and other things, we are using not IR laser, we are actually using near visible laser. Okay, so here the answer is C. So IR lasers also we can use at different things, but yeah. Excimer laser, which is predominantly used in treat LASIK. You know what is excimer? Excimer is actually a, it is called excited dimer. In this one, actually, usually we will use a, we will have a ideal sorry, inert gas plus a halogen. So usually a inert gas halogen mixture is used as a excimer laser. So when it is undergo excitation, it will form an excited dimer, and this excited dimer is actually we use that name as excimer. And this excited dimer can actually give a strong UV laser. So that is actually the basics of the excimer laser. So one of the common used excimer is argon fluoride pair. So the inert gas will be argon, and the fluoride will be, or the fluorine will be the halogen. So the mixture will be used as a excited dimer, and it will give a strong UV laser. So here the answer is argon fluoride laser, which is actually a excited dimer. The next question is the amount of time that takes an objective to return to ambient temperature following heating is known as. So this is like a common answer for everything. So if something got excited, it's like a thermal excitation or any excitation. So the time it which retain in that excited state to come back usually called, that phenomenon is called relaxation. So if it's something got excited, then it's coming back to its normal state is called, usually we call it as a relaxation. So this is the, if it is a ambient temperature, if it is heated, so that's a, like a, it's not exact excitation, it's not an electronic excitation, you can say it's a thermal excitation or something. So coming back to its initial position is called thermal relaxation. And the thermal relaxation, the time required for thermal relaxation is nothing but thermal relaxation time. The answer is A. Okay. Ideal characteristics of a laser used in tissue welding should be, just see what are the useful thing. Use of short pulse laser. So this is actually good. So it will create very high energetic pulse such that it will not damage, because it will not get enough time to get the whole tissue to be equilibrated with the high temperature or something. So within the short time it will get welded. So uses of short pulse laser is actually good. Selection of laser wavelength to limit absorption. So that also good, such that it will not get absorbed by the whole part of the thing. It only get absorbed at the required portion. So that also good. Use chromophore to increase the bonding strength. So actually we can use a chromophore such that which will get absorbed, or we can select the laser in such a way that which is useful for that particular application, and you can use the efficiency of the bonding or the welding. So that also true. Such that A is true, B is true, C is true. So the answer is all of them. So the proper answer is option D. Chromophore, which are mainly targeted by laser for tattoo removal, is so. It's actually we are using that the tattoos are actually comes at the below the epidermis layer. So either we have to use that here. Actually, we want to target the chromophore. So in that layer, actually we have the coloring pigment for our skin. It's called melanin. So for the tattoo removal, this laser will be considered that as a target chromophore. So what will happen? So it will actually target. We have to select the laser in such a way that that wavelength is actually matching with that of the melanin, and it will destroy the region or the cells as well as the either or the it will destroy the cell with the nearby damage. So thing which is useful for the tattoo removal is the laser, which will be useful for, or which can be considered as the laser with the melanin chromophore. So answer is B. Photorefractive keratectomy is advantages for the people who have thin corneas, thick corneas, larger people, small people. What is the photorefractive PRK method? But they will actually cut some small portion of the cornea, and it will treat with the laser, and that then they will put a contact lens kind of bandage kind of thing, such that it will grow in such a way that the curvature of the cornea will be decreased and it will attain the initial state. So in order to do, the cornea should properly reoriented and to form in the normal structure, it is better to have a thin corneas. Okay. Small oil producing gland present in the skin of mammal is known as, it's a direct question. So the oil glands, which is present in our skin, is called the sebaceous gland, and the oil which actually produced by that particular gland is called the sebum. Major advantages of using laser in dentistry is, these are the advantages. You can say fast healing time. So that's true, because this is affected areas are much less compared with the conventional procedure. So it can provide a fast healing time. So that's actually true statement. Low chance of infection. That also true, since this is not affecting much more area like conventional methods. So chance of getting infection is also less. Less discomfort. This also true. So since these things are true, so the main answer is D. All of them. Answer is D. It has been claimed that low-level laser therapy can help in reduce pain. These are actually, as discussed in the class, we cannot completely consider these are completely scientifically proven, or these are standardized methods. But low-level laser therapy can, it's claimed that they can be used to reduce the pain, reduce inflammation, such that here the answer will be both A and B. So these are the practical assignment questions, such that you can, it will be helpful for solving the assignments by your own. So please go through these things. If you have any doubt, just you can ask. So if you have any doubt, you can ask. Otherwise, we will summarize the whatever the things which we gone through today. Today we actually went through the basics of laws of motion. Then we saw about first law of motion, second law of motion, and how that motion can be quantified using rate of change of momentum, and the same rate of change of momentum can be used to define the unit of force as Newton. And the same thing, the if we are considering the light as a or the or we consider the, the third law of motion also, then if you are considering the light as a particle, then as the light passes it carries momentum and it can impart force on the other particles. So due to refraction and due to reflection it can impart force. And if it is passes through in a dielectric bead, there are two types of force can be imparted: refractive force, which is happens through the refraction, the path of the light changes and it is imparts some force on the dielectric particles. And there's a reflective force, which is imparted on the particle due to the reflection of light. So then when the refractive force and reflective forces are matching each other, it can be used as an equilibrium position, and at the equilibrium position the dielectric bead got trapped, and this is called the fundamentals of the optical teaser. And to get that particular configuration, we want a high numerical aperture lens and the laser beam with some sufficient power, and we can use and we can trap the dielectric bead. So this is the basic of optical teaser things, and we solved the different assignment question. So if you have any doubt, you can ask that one. If you people do not have any doubt, we can meet next week. So if you are having any doubt and the things how to solve the problems, or you had to want this more clarifications and other thing, you can always give post that one in the group. Our TA or we I or the TAs will check that one and try to solve that your issues. And if you have problem to solve any question and you are seeing that some mistakes is there in the questions or something, that also please point out such that we can check whether that questions need to be validated or not. So these things, if you have any problem, just inform us such that that will be taken care. Okay. Hope this session is useful for you people, and happy learning. We will meet in the next week. Okay. Thank you. So I'm going to stop the meet. Okay. All the best to you. Thank you.